Hey, so, I've had the good fortune of being on a lot of good Toby winning teams and a couple of actually really bad Toby winning, or not even Toby winning, but a couple of bad Toby submissions. So I've really had a lot of background in the learning process, and I hope I can pass some of that along to you. A lot of it, is probably going to seem pretty obvious, but just trying to go over the basics here for maximizing your Toby submission. So one of the things I always found out, or always found in a Toby submission, is that your attitude and approach really means everything to what you get out of it. And the most common issue I've seen is people freaking out. You wind up with this mammoth task of, compiling information, and you've got checklists of, what needs to be there. And people, you freak out, you get a little bit of paralysis. And, we're changing their submission process this year, as I'm sure you've seen. And it actually, I went through it with the regionals, and you find yourself, looking at this, and it just looks like a mammoth undertaking. But if you break it down into pieces, it actually becomes very easy. On the other end of the coin, people get overconfident, and all they do is, yeah, they check all the boxes, and they've got this great property and think it's, sure winner, just by checking those boxes. And the problem being, everybody's checking those boxes. So you need to, be confident or cognizant of the fact that everybody else is checking those boxes. Everybody else has a good property. If you're putting it up for a Toby, there's a reason for it. So calm down, don't get overconfident, and just approach it in a strategic manner. Now, with this, especially with the new procedure of submitting, definitely start early, review it, get all your facts together. There's going to be a few areas where you're going to need to combine PDFs and whatnot. So just be ready for it. Take a look over and make sure you can get everything together beforehand. So first thing we're going to take a look at that everyone gets is the judging sheet. And sorry, bear with me a sec as I share my screen.
I'm just going to jump in for 2 seconds and say that we're going to be doing questions as they come up. So feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat window, and we'll get those questions over to George. You don't need to save them until the end. So if something comes to mind, please speak up.
Okay, so the first thing we're looking at is the judging sheet, or I should say the inspection verification form. You are given this to know exactly what needs to be inspected at your property and the reports you're going to need and documentation you're going to need for your book. This is merely, as I had said, just a check the box type of deal. Everyone's going to check these boxes. This is your bare minimum. So there's also some very, very obvious boxes that are missing depending on what you're entering. For example, this is an office and renovated form. Now, it's got all your basics, listed down here, but something, not listed here. For example, if you're entering for renovated, there's nothing here telling you to put in a storyboard, before and after pictures, any type of, blueprints or whatnot to show the actual construction, to show, some type of before and what it's become. If you don't have that, you're bringing judges into a building. They have no idea what you did as far as renovation. For all they know, you painted the walls. And they need to know where you've come from and where you've gotten to. And that would go, Earth Award, you're missing a lot of things that you're really going to want to get on there. Such as are you doing conservation projects? There's no checkbox for are you doing avian projects? Are you doing pollinator projects? So you need to keep in mind exactly what you're entering and what the additional features are that are going to get you extra points. Now, going from there, when you get over to the criteria, you have a very similar situation, but it is laid out quite a bit more, and you do have how many points you're getting for each section. So as you go through, you'll know exactly how many points, where to focus, but you're always going to try and maximize your points. You want to always try to get the absolute top score you can in any of these categories. So So for example, as you get to Energy Star, different scores are going to have different point totals, so you're going to want to maximize there. Your energy performance results for a total of 3 points. Describe the steps taken. If you've got very marginal steps, maybe you're only going to get 2 points, maybe you're only going to get 1 point. You want to try and maximize everything you can, explain in detail exactly what is going on so you can get all those points, because 1 or 2 points is going to be the difference between winning a Toby, winning a Grand Toby, or just going home. So always try and keep that in mind and go through each and every section and make sure you are maximizing all of your points. When you get to your submission form, take your time, look at it one category at a time, and make sure it's complete. As I said, we did have the situation where you can get a little bit of paralysis going just out of the fact that it's a big submission this year. Each of these sections is going to have extensive documentation that needs to be uploaded. So take it one section at a time, make sure you've got everything together, and go from there. And moving on from there, this is an actual judge's sheet. So this is what they're saying and what they're scoring with. This will be provided to you, available to you. And good thing to do is always follow along with the judge's sheet when you're putting your book and your presentation together. Reason for that being, you want to make it very easy to follow. But this also highlights the other not mentioned above, where you can grab an extra 4 points, depending on, again, what category you're in. But, in your recycling, are you doing something that's different than, standard? Are you doing electronic waste recycling? Are you doing recycling of organics? Make sure you get that in there. The judges are aware of it, so you can get the points for that. Now, when it comes to your walkthrough day, you're going to want to absolutely go beyond the checklist. Make sure you've documented absolutely everything in your book. Have your book and your materials ordered in a way that's going to follow and make sense with the judging sheet, so that your judges don't have to, struggle to, skip around and try and, figure out what's going where. So try and follow the sheet as closely as you can. Now, in addition, you want to plan your tour route to be efficient. You want to touch all the points on your checklist. You want to highlight the best parts of your property, and don't take up your judges' time on any topics that just aren't related to the tour itself, or drag them off tour to show them, hey, this is where we had a flood in 2016. If it's not relevant, the judges have been judging all day, so you want to get them through as quickly as possible. And treat them like they're VIP guests. They've been on rooftops all day. They've been walking buildings all day. It's August. It's going to be hot. Have some refreshments for them. Make them feel at home. Try and be accommodating and understand where they've been all day. And, know that, they may be a little short. Maybe they won't be, but, just be understanding of where they've been. When they get there, do an introductory presentation, overview of the property. Just general overview and facts, which would be in your, general presentation and the facts of the building, just so they can get familiar. When you get into your book, I've always used a presentation that follows the book. And I've got an example of that. For our Earth tour last year, we led them right through the book, because you're telling a story. You're telling the story of your property. And there's a lot of documentation within the book. So point out the key points you want to show the judges. And you're going to have a lot along the way. So being able to lead them through, make sure they see what's relevant, is going to make it easier for them and going to make a better presentation for you. If you have live portals, if you've got energy portals, if you've got a recycling portal, any unique financial portals, bring them up onto your PC, bring them up live, let them see them. Answer questions, let them, ask about the portals, how they work, and always be ready for said questions. So with that, if you're telling the entire story of your building and getting in all your key points, and touching on all of the things that aren't simply, the box to check, you're going to score higher than if you simply check the boxes. So beyond that, any questions on anything I've said so far?
I have no questions, George.
Okay. In that case, I can pretty much wrap up. I've said, pretty much all I can really pass along. The biggest thing being, like I say, get those extra points and make sure you maximize the points on the check boxes.
Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions, or you can put them in the chat.
All good. Thank you, everyone.
I'm good, George. Thank you. Very well done.
George, I think you did a great presentation, and I do agree with you that telling the story is something you need to do. And I've noticed when I've been a judge, when you arrive at a property and you're greeted and the team, is giving you an update on the site and the buildings around, and just in general, greeting you nicely, I think, is important when you first arrive. Telling the story with the presentation, I think, is important, very important. So thank you so much.
Of course. All right, well, I thank you all for your time, and turn it back over to Heather.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. This is the last of our TOBY series of webinars. There are 4 that we've done all together. They are, we'll get George's recording up on the website as soon as possible. So feel free to direct anybody who was not able to join us for today's webinar to those recordings where the information will be available to them. And obviously headquarters staff or George would be happy to answer any questions if you think of something after the webinar is over. We again appreciate everybody joining us today, and we'll talk to you again soon.